This is it's an amazing film, a really amazing story. One of the things we've been talking to Michelle and Gerard about is, the authenticity factor of it and how they both got to spend time with you and Lynn. Obviously the first question everybody would want to ask is how accurate did you feel that this was, and were you happy with the overall presentation?
Okay, did any of you here happen to buy the book or get the book? Or I believe we have some books to hand out. Is there some books?
See if there are any more left.
Okay, we'll see if we've got some books, but if not, you can buy the book. The movie is based on the book, and what makes it all messed up is the timeline. They took 30-some plus years and messed up the timeline. There's a couple things in the movie that is not true. The number one thing is on a bad day, I never did go back to drinking or doing drugs ever in 23 years. Totally not true. Why they put it in there, I don't know. A guy that works with me a lot said to me, he said, well, Sam, he says, don't, just let it go, because at least that person that slips up and goes back, at least they know that they can walk back out of it again. But I didn't like that. But otherwise, on the overall picture, I was very well pleased with the movie.
Well, we heard that maybe the car wasn't rocking enough.
Right, that was true. That was what me and my wife said. They shamed us on that picture. They shamed us on that part.
Can you talk about that moment, that first moment where you found God, and what it was like finding God in your life?
What it showed in the movie definitely did happen. It's just the timeline.
It's about that.
The timeline was messed up.
Okay.
The truth, when I first knew I was going to change my life, was in Orlando, Florida. I was in a bar fight, turned out to be a shootout. I almost got killed, and on the way home that night, I made up my mind that it's done, I'm done. And if there's one thing I share, with everyone, I speak on drugs and alcohol all the time. No matter who you are, if you want to stop an addiction, it's all right here. It's all right here. God can do anything, but God can only help us through a problem. And a lot of times we want to think that God is like a genie in a bottle. But if you got an addiction, you got to first make up your mind, I'm not living this life no more. And that's what I did. It wasn't until 4 years later that I ended up saying, hey, I'm done. I'm going to spend the rest of my life walking with the King. But I went home that night. I said to my wife, I said, we're moving. And she said, why? And I said, somebody's going to kill me and I'm going to die for no reason at all. And I don't have a problem with dying, but I have a problem with what I'm going to die for.
Every person of faith has moments in life where they feel like their faith is challenged. Was there a moment for you when you were in Africa?
It happened to me just before I come in here.
Just before you came in? You're like, I got to deal with all these press people?
I believe it's every day. I believe it is every day for me.
Yeah. What do you think is the secret to getting through that, though?
I don't want to sound like a religious person, because those are the people that hung Jesus on the cross.
Right.
But I pray all the time, man. I pray all the time, and I pray because I'm not an educated person at all. I don't have no education at all. 30 years ago, I couldn't read or write. But I wrote a book, that they're making a movie about, and I wrote a second book that they say is going to do unbelievable too. So that goes to show you that God is real, So I go to Him for wisdom and knowledge,
Well, not to try to pin you down on it, but was there maybe one particular moment that really, for you, was kind of a very challenging moment where you just thought, I don't know if I can make it through this? I'm sure with all the things you've seen.
There's so much, and it's not really so much in Africa. There was a lot of hard. I think in Africa the hardest thing was when you would see the starving people. When you would see the children that's cut in half,
right.
When you see children nailed to trees, and then you come home and you tell the stories to people, and you still don't raise enough money to do something about it. So then you got to start selling your stuff in your home to do something about it. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges to life, but sometimes I think God is, testing us to see how far are you willing to go.
Right.
And I believe that I proved myself to Him, and I believe that's why I'm here today. Because God's seen, you can tell in the movie there was a sacrifice. Yeah, there was a sacrifice. You can see it.
Well, speaking of like Hollywood, how has the Hollywood sort of machine How have you reacted to that? Has it been a pleasurable experience? Because I mean, a lot of times when you hear about movies that are based on real
Kind of
stories,
like a rash, you learn to live with it.
but I mean, but I would think with this being the end result that it's all
They've done good.
it's done a good job.
And
Yeah.
I can honestly say that if I was not pleased with what's out there, because I know it's going to help a nation, it's going to help our nation, it's going to help around the world, I would not be here. I mean, I don't care who has watched the movie. I've had some of my biker friends, hardcore people watch that movie that told me, man, it made me cry.
Yeah.
You know, so it's doing, it might not, you know, it might not do the results that a lot of Christians will think so. But I tell you what I've been telling Christians around the U.S. every time I get an opportunity. You'll never get a better outreach plan than this. And I tell churches, go buy theaters out. In my little church in Pennsylvania, we bought every seat out in the theater. We went in and bought a whole theater out. And what we're doing is we're handing the tickets out to people that will not go to church. And it's the biggest outreach plan you could ever do. And give the tickets to people. People that's all messed up. People that has addictions, you know.
I think even beyond churches, maybe schools
Yeah,
should
absolutely,
take their students to
absolutely.
see
You know,
it.
somebody said to me the other night, they said, well, why did you make it R-rated? The language is bad for kids. I said, it's no worse than they'll hear on the way home on their bus.
Absolutely true. Or in the hallway.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. It's a wonderful film.
All right, we're done? One
Last
more?
question, yeah.
Okay, last question.
Can you talk about what your book's about, your new one?
The new one, everything that's not in the first book. No, the new one is, I have it titled Living on the Edge. And it is everything that's not in the first book, but a few things hit that are in the first book. And the ghostwriter from the first book started reading some of the second. He broke down and started crying. And he says, oh my God, Sam, where did this come from? And I said, well, the first book was all from up here. And the second book is right from here. And it's all the struggles that I went through that nobody even really knows, you know. And, you know, a lot of people would say, you know, Sam, why don't you give up? I heard God say to do it, but I didn't hear him say give up. You know, so until he says stop, I'll keep going. But the second book is really, really good. The first one's good. You have to pick it up somewhere. Another Man's War.